few different thoughts of what might... Are we recording me, are we? We don't need to record me, you can record Baba. So what's the first thing that could go wrong? We can get distracted, in my view. So here we are. We're at this beautiful retreat. We've had 2 days program. Some of us have had 2 days program beforehand. We're at this beautiful retreat now. We will surely all make a series of commitments to ourselves. I will get up early in the morning. I'm going to keep this schedule for the rest of my life. This is totally, I can do this. We will think, I'm in such a blissful state. I'm watching my breath. I'm not getting angry. Soon as we go home, we see our husband or wife or the kids or the dog, and we immediately get angry again. So this is the problem, isn't it? That actually it's very easy to get started. It's very hard to continue. In Australia, Sri Guruji said, look, coming to retreats is nice, but actually what happens outside of the retreat is what's important. The retreat is like filling your tank so that you can drive. But the great thing, it's like it's like one of those hybrid engines. By driving it, you charge it or something. I don't know anything about cars. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. So, but it's one of those things that is replenished by doing. So we fill ourselves up right now. Don't let that go to waste. So take seriously the commitments that we want to make for ourselves. And instead of allowing daily life to crowd back in, the thing that can help us to avoid this problem is by setting, for me anyway, is by establishing a routine and a process for practice that becomes immovable after the retreat. So not to wait until we get home and let everything crowd in, but actually say, no, this is when I'm going to wake, and this is how I'm going to do it. There is a beautiful book called Government by Routine, where a great thinker about public policy has written, if you want excellence in politics and in public administration, just keep doing small things every day with routine. Please come back. Come. There's plenty of space. Come. And so I think, in a sense, sadhana is a little bit like that. Small things done in a routine fashion without compromise. So not to think I need to practice for 3 hours in a sitting or an hour and 45. I will do my practice. I will reserve for myself half an hour at least every morning, and I'll do my practice. I'll pray a little bit before sleeping every night. I will watch my breath when I'm on the tram or the train or driving. So routine, process. That helps us to overcome the first problem that confronts us. The problem of distraction, or the problem of inability to follow through. So make a routine. The second thing I would like to propose that could go wrong is that we can make mistakes. Knowingly or unknowingly, out of ignorance or otherwise, we may make mistakes. Yesterday we talked about how Sri Guruji, in his early days with Gurudev, didn't want to do 3 things. He didn't want to be a monk, he didn't want to be a Kriya teacher, and he didn't want to go to the West. And because of following his Guru, he had to do all of those things. But in the early days, he resisted. And there are some very amusing stories about how he resisted. And those stories are all in my time with the Master, so you can enjoy them there. So it's not always easy to follow. And even great teachers like Adi Shankaracharya, made mistakes. None of us are... Even great devotees can make mistakes from time to time. And so there's one story about the Shankaracharya who, Adi Shankar, he was walking in, I think it was Varanasi. He had been giving some teachings on non-dualism. And he came across, down the street, he came across a street sweeper who was from a lower status in society. And as you may know, that in very traditional ways, higher caste people aren't even to be touched by such people. And And so Adi Shankar said, please move aside. And so the sweeper called out to him, who are you? And Adi Shankar replied, I'm a Brahmin. I'm a teacher of Vedanta. And the street sweeper said, oh, if you're a Brahmin and a teacher of Vedanta, if you're talking so much about the non-dual nature of God, why are you afraid to touch me? Immediately realizing his mistake, Adi Shankar fell at the feet of that sweeper and washed that man's feet with his tears. He said, truly, I have no idea who I am. You are my Guru. You have come to me to teach me this. I think it's such a beautiful story. When we make a mistake, what should we do? We should admit it immediately. We should be grateful for the one or for the circumstances that pointed it out to us. And we should try to rectify it. We make mistakes in our practice, in our thoughts, in our words, and in our deeds nearly constantly. Perfection is not an easy thing. But as Gurudev said, mistakes are not for mistakes. Mistakes are for correction. So when a mistake happens, when we become aware that we've made a mistake, thank God that this mistake has been made aware, that I've been made aware of this mistake. Guruji once corrected me in public. Thankfully he didn't mention that it was me, because then I think my head would have exploded. But I had made a mistake, and he said, oh, some people have done such and such. And I think he knew how much my head was about to explode. And he said, this was in a public talk, just by the way. And he said, you might say, why am I telling these things? I'm telling these things because mistakes aren't for mistakes. Mistakes are to be corrected. With love, we correct them. And so we should be, of course, I was mortified. Absolutely mortified. And I was praying to be like Sitaji, that the world would just swallow me up. But I came to realize how beautiful that Baba corrected me like that. So I would now that thing, I'm writing something on that correction that he gave me. Like, it's become such a central part of how I think about spiritual life. So mistakes are great if you catch them. We were talking yesterday about that saying of Gurudev, practice, 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 practice makes you perfect. Practice comes first, perfection never comes first. In fact, there's something I think about mistakes and practice and perfection. Actually, we're always re-remembering. When we think of our breath, we're always forgetting our breath. Forgetting our breath is okay, so long as we remember that we forgot it. So we're always re-remembering. Forget 100 times, but remember 101 times. And that I think is the path of sadhana. That's the path of spirituality. It's not to hate ourselves or beat ourselves up when we don't live up to our ideal. Swami Vivekanandaji said, we should confess that we haven't met our ideal. We should neither pull the ideal down, nor should we hate ourselves. We should strive again to meet the ordeal. Forget 100 times, forget 1,000 times, but remember 1,001. So, we might get distracted, one problem. We might make mistakes, another problem. But it's okay, there's a way out of both of these problems. The third error that we might make, the third problem that we might encounter, is that we might develop attachments. It's very natural living in the world, is it not? We might become attached to people. We might become attached to places or things or activities or pets. Pets are easy to be attached to. Guruji says, it's easy to love pets, it's hard to love people. Yeah, it's true. Guruji says we should not have attachment to any form. I've heard from his own lips, not even to the form of the Guru should you have attachments. No attachments to any form. It's the essence that we must love. It is what is within. It's the substance, it's not the form that matters. The substance is God, and the substance is love. So how can we do this in practical terms, though? I love this story from Sri Ramakrishna. So one of his disciples was saying to him, did Baba tell the story as well? He may have told it the other day. So one of the disciples was saying, he met one disciple who said, Baba, I have no love for God. I'm not able to develop any love for God. And Thakur said, no problem. Do you love anything? He said, yes, I love my goat. My goat I love. And Thakur said, perfect, no problem. When you serve your goat, when you are with your goat, feel that you are serving God in that goat. Feel that you are feeding God. Feel that you are caring for God. And then everything will be all right. And so there is this beautiful, Thakur Sri Ramakrishna was so beautiful in his ability, like Patrul Rinpoche, he could express the most complicated and beautiful spiritual and philosophical truths so easily and simply. I love him. So he's given us a route out of this problem of attachments. If we cannot do without the attachments, at least let us divinize that attachment. Let us at least, I am not attached to you, O Guru. I am not attached to you, my loving dog. I am not attached to you, my loving husband or wife. It is God within you that I love. Like this. Constantly look to see like that. Baba has been talking about the Isha Upanishad, which begins with that mantra that God, everything that we see, God is pervading. Every person, every place, every activity, God is pervading. So we have two kinds of attitudes. We can see God in all, or we can give all of our attachments to God. We may lose somebody. It happens in life. I once heard Baba say, somebody was asking about their pet dog who had left the body. And Baba said, don't worry about the dog. God is there for the dog, and God is there for you. So if you have attachments, you offer them to God. You either see God in the thing to which you're attached, or you offer the attachment to God. Either way, both works. So there are two routes out of this problem of attachment. Hard, not always easy to do, but there is at least a pathway for us to practice. So we try. So we can get distracted, we can make mistakes, we can develop attachments. But there's a pathway. What else can go wrong? So it's a very common experience, isn't it, when we start our practice or when we intensify our practice. People say, often you hear this in the review class after people have done initiation or when they've done a longer retreat. They say, so much anger and frustration is coming up in me. So many bad thoughts are coming out. So when we intensify our practice, or when we start our practice, sometimes it seems like negatives can come out. First thing to note about these is actually sometimes we're just more aware of them. They were always there. This is the bad news. The bad news is that they were with us for a long time. And we've just now become slightly more aware of them because we're watching the breath, we're more aware of the contents of the mind, we're watching the flow of thoughts, as Swamiji was telling us yesterday. But there is also another way. So many of you will be aware of the story of churning the ocean of milk. I've heard Sri Guruji give this example in respect of this context. So when we start to practice, let me tell you the story for those who don't know. So this is a very popular moment from the scriptures, a well-known moment in the scriptures. So we have the devas, the angelic type beings, and we have the more demonic type beings, or as Baba often calls them, not demonic, he often calls them self-regarding people. He calls them selfish people. So we have the devas and we have the selfish types. And they come to realize that beneath this ocean of milk, there is the amrit, there's the elixir, the nectar of immortality. And they think we should have it. And so they think how to get it. And they think, well, we must churn the ocean to get out this amrit. So how do they do it? Well, they take the help of many celestial beings and many great things. So they get a great mountain and they place it in the ocean of milk. A great celestial serpent comes and becomes the rope. So the mountain becomes the churning rod, the snake becomes the rope. The angelic type beings are holding one end of the snake, and the selfish types are holding the other end. And together they're pulling and churning, and the ocean starts to get churned. As they look for this elixir, this nectar of immortality. But what comes out first? Poison. Poison comes out first. And there's a beautiful story of what happened to that poison. Lord Shiva takes that poison and holds it with the help of Mother Parvati in the throat. Beautiful story. We can talk about it some other time. First comes out poison. Then comes out many treasures. Jewels, gems, wish-fulfilling trees, white horses, flying elephants, everything comes out. And then finally, and then only then, at the end, they get the elixir of immortality. The amrit comes. So this is very much like the spiritual journey. We are churning through our practice. We're churning our inner life. And the first thing that might come out is some of our negatives. So like Lord Shiva, we should neither spit that on anybody else nor swallow it. We should hold it and transform it. So these anger can come out, frustration can come out, but we have to just hold it, let it go. And then other things will start to come out as well. But we must also not get caught on those other things. Beautiful things will come out. Wish-fulfilling gems and trees and everything. Kalpavrikshas, everything will come out. We also have to let those things pass because our goal is clear. You know, yesterday I was talking to my loving mother about some of the Tibetan Buddhists. They have some beautiful practices around death. And they have there's a Tibetan book of death, or living and dying. And it's recited when somebody leaves the body to help them to understand. It's recited all the time, but also when someone leaves the body. And in that book is narrated, you are going to see extreme visions of demons and fire, and let it go, keep going, Divine One, keep going. But then the next thing you'll see is beautiful divine beings and heavens that you can't describe. And again, it's a divine being, please keep going, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop until you reach enlightenment. So we have to be careful on the spiritual path. Negative things can come out, but also after some practice, some positive things might come out as well. But we shouldn't get caught in any of it. Our only goal is God, immortality. So beautiful metaphors, beautiful stories. There's a lot more to that story, but for these purposes, it's enough to just say, in spiritual life, we have to keep churning. Whatever comes out, good or bad, just keep churning. Know that it's part of the process. Know that it's written in the scriptures. It's there. We keep churning. That is our duty. What comes is not our duty. What we do is our duty. Churn, let go. Churn, let go. Keep going. Negative emotions and thoughts may come in. Some people experience on the spiritual path many negative occurrences as well. Bad things can happen. Some people say that it's because our karma is being quickened and masters are speeding us through these negative things. It may be the case. I don't know. But when we're on the spiritual path, our duty is to try to be fearless. Whatever comes our way, we must be as fearless as we can. Sri Guruji has written a beautiful book about fear. I really recommend it. It made a big difference to me. But this idea that we have to Whatever comes to us is a gift of God and Gurus for our own transformation. If it's good, beautiful, thank God. If it's bad, beautiful, thank God. Now I get to work in this context. As one of the disciples of Neem Karoli Baba said, everything is grist for the mill of awakening. So whatever comes is a gift from God and Gurus, good or bad. We were talking in the last few days about Swami Brahmanandji, who was a great disciple of Thakur Sri Ramakrishna. And he said, when you start practicing spiritual discipline, you will find that things which are not good come up, and you feel disturbed. But all of this is due to the fact that you have to work out your past karmas. All the bad tendencies must come up in order to be burnt out. The spiritual path is not always smooth, but it is like walking on a razor's edge. You must be very cautious and careful. Be thankful for anything negative that comes as much as you can. Pray for strength. You know, Baba sometimes says, I've heard him say, if you have a bad dream, you should be grateful. Because now you've dealt with all of that and you don't have to deal with it in everyday life. So, is it not the case that this life is like a dream? If we have a bad dream, one day we'll wake up. But we should be grateful that we're dealing with things now rather than having to deal with them later. So, distraction, mistakes, attachments, negative internal and external things may come up. But there's one worse thing of all. The worst thing that can come to us on the spiritual path, that can get in our way. That is spiritual pride. We make a little progress and we think we're wonderful. We think, oh, I've been to this retreat 3 days, hour and a half meditation sessions, sitting at the feet of Master, beautiful Master. I am a great disciple. I am very blessed. I must, in fact, have many spiritual virtues to be in such a good situation. Let me go and tell other people about how great I am. Or even worse, let me believe how great I am and not even speak about it. Like this. We think this happens to us. But we should never think that we're better than others. Baba has said, spiritual pride is the most dangerous thing on the spiritual path. It can lead to arrogance, conceit, and lack of humility. If we want to progress on the spiritual path, we must always remain humble. Only by recognizing our own limitations can we truly grow and evolve on the path of self-realization. I was watching a YouTube of Baba and I heard him say something else and I transcribed it for this to be able to tell you. He says, spiritual ego is the greatest enemy. You can't imagine. To have ego of money is nothing. Baba's saying. To have ego of beauty is nothing in comparison with the ego of spirituality. In truth, we know nothing. In a sense, the worst thing about spiritual pride is that it stops us from learning, because we think we have already achieved something. We've become proud, and there are lines in our mind and in our heart about who we can learn from and where we are. But actually, we know nothing. We can learn from everyone and everything. Swamiji has a book on his table, Swami Prabodhananda Baba. It's My Gurus, which is that book by Baba, in which the saint is talking about his 24 gurus, everyone who's taught him, from flowers to bees to birds to children. Everyone is our guru. Our guru is smiling at us from everyone, from everything. A rock trips you and makes you fall. Your guru is there tripping you and making you fall. So with this kind of attitude, we must be humble all the time. From everyone we can learn. We're not better than anyone. All are children of God. Anything good in us is an expression of God's gifts to us. There is nothing for us. It's all Him. So if we can try to keep this in mind, we won't misstep. So, the grace of the Guru is constantly showering. And we, like pots, need to be pointed in the right direction, fired in yoga, undistracted and clean, in order to be able to take and digest those blessings. Those blessings are falling in abundance all the time, but these next 3 days, in the physical presence of Baba, you will close your eyes and you will feel those blessings in a very special way. Because we are deluded beings. Still for us, the outside is important. So still for us, Baba sitting here is going to make a huge difference. So make sure you're a pot in the right direction. And don't worry about mistakes, don't worry about distractions, don't worry about attachments. Notice them. See those negativities. But don't become disheartened. Let them be a source of inspiration. I've seen another one. I'm doing it again. Is it not the case that when we are doing some work that we love, and then we finish that work, and we realize, oh, we didn't complete it, we get joy. We think, oh, I get to do this thing again. Oh, I haven't watched this video of Baba. Or I haven't looked at this picture of the Lord. Or I haven't played this video game. So when we love to do something, when we find that we haven't done it completely, we are joyful. So we should love our spiritual practice. And when we find we haven't done it completely, we can be joyful that there's more for us to do now. And most of all, we should be more humble than a blade of grass, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. And we should always remember that we are nothing but the helpless children of the Lord. We can learn from everybody. We have no reason to get haughty or get puffed up. And in that way, we'll capture all of that grace. So my loving friends, please close your eyes. Oh Master, we are sitting here in your divine presence, both within and without. We're trying to become good disciples. We're trying to follow in your footsteps. Please help us to be worthy. Please help us to follow. Please help us to gather up your grace and to fearlessly face the bumps and the twists and the turns in the path of sadhana and spirituality. We are your helpless children. Please take us by the hand and walk with us step by step. Help us never to forget you, never to forget our goal.